Hello. All right, cool. Sorry for the troubles and sorry for the wait. I would like to welcome everyone here. We have Aaron with us, Yeong, sorry, Choong and Sing. Yeah. Today's topic we're going to talk about DeFi. I think it's something that interesting, which I believe will interest you guys because this is a new generations of products, so called. We start with a few questions first. So the first questions to Aaron itself, all right? Please tell us about Luno and what is it and how does it start?
Thanks, Bobby. So Luno is what you call a cryptocurrency exchange or digital asset exchange. We were the first regulated digital asset exchange in Malaysia, meaning we are regulated by the Securities Commission and we are also monitored by Bank Negara Malaysia. In a nutshell, Luno makes it safe and easy for people who want to buy and invest in digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Is this the only two coins that you guys offer?
We actually have 7 coins at the moment, but of course, Bitcoin, Ethereum are the most well-known, but we also offer other cryptos like XRP, Ripple, Uni, Swap, Chainlink, and so on.
I would like to also understand further in regards of the participation rates when it comes to this Luno exchange. What are the percentage of retail investor versus institutional investors that you have in mind?
Yeah, I would say we are currently about 99% retail investors. So most of our customers are basically individuals, average people on the street. Yeah.
Okay, cool. To clarify, when we talk about Luno, is it DeFi or?
When we talk about DeFi, in the crypto world, decentralized finance, it usually refers to crypto investing or crypto applications that are a little bit less centralized than Luno. So Luno is what is known as a centralized exchange, as in we have a company, we have a board of directors, we have people working in the company. But usually when you talk about DeFi, it refers to code that lives 100% online. It may have a team that creates the code and so on, but it usually doesn't exist as a formal entity or like a board of directors kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. So in a way, in a nutshell, Luno is much more centralized compared to what we call DeFi now.
Yeah. I mean, you can say we are the boomer kind of crypto company as well. Yeah.
The old school. Yeah. So in a way, would Luno offer products that is related to DeFi, so on and so forth?
Yeah,
future?
Luno definitely can offer products that are related to DeFi, or for example, coins that are used in the DeFi world and so on. But we will always run as a centralized entity.
Yeah. Okay, understood then. So I hope this clarifies the idea of what's the difference between centralized and also decentralized finance a little bit. But we'll go further deeper into it. Yeong, maybe it's your turn now. Your firm offers consultancy for blockchain developments and business tokenizations. Please indulge us for a moment. There's a lot of big work here, right? Usually we talk about DeFi, we talk about tokenizations, we talk about blockchain. But could you treat us like a 9 years old and explain to us what is DeFi so, every one of us here understand?
I just find it hilarious. Aaron calls himself a boomer and you're asking us to treat everyone like 9-year-olds. I mean, I think about it, sometimes even average Malaysians don't fully understand the finance, so probably I have to make certain assumptions with 9-year-olds, right? I would assume that the 9-year-olds have graduated, would have finance. Probably all of us have 9-year-olds within us. Anyways, to answer that question regarding DeFi, What is DeFi? I would like to use the example of nasi lemak bungkus. Because I haven't had breakfast, so I was just thinking about food, right? So if you break down what makes nasi lemak good, right, you realize, probably the egg, the sambal. Similarly, if you look at the etymology of DeFi, it comes from a combination or mishmash of words, decentralized finance. So again, the finance side, I have to make certain assumptions. I would assume I don't have to explain on stage in interest of time. But for the decentralized part is where it gets very interesting. Why is that the case? Because with the invention of blockchain and then the introduction of cryptocurrencies right now, there is an ability for us to actually develop finance in a decentralized way. And how it's done is that if you look at cryptocurrencies, you further break it down into two major components. It is essentially what we call a state machine and a compute machine. So you can go check it out, right? So what is a state machine? State machine, a blockchain essentially is a state machine. To put it very simply, it's sort of like a ledger that keeps tracks of the state of the transaction as certain things, as you know, when you transact, right? So it just keeps tracks of the state. Now, with Bitcoin, that was what it was introduced for a number of years until close to 2013 when people start thinking about what else can you do with it. That's where the compute machine comes in. Or if you guys are interested in learning, you can also look at Turing machines, right, and go research about it. Essentially, it's like a computer or anything that you can put in, it can compute and give you an output. So now you have the state machine that keeps track of the transaction. There's an input and output. And if you introduce a compute machine on top of it, it's sort of like an if-else. It's like a contract, right? It's like a piece of paper. Like if you use Excel sheet, you can put if-else statements inside and come up with formulas. And then whatever you put in, it comes out with an answer. So imagine now you have blockchain, decentralized, people accept that it's immutable and it's not controlled by anyone. And then now you add on the compute component with if-else statements. You can do very interesting things. Like one of it is you could write futures contract. That is why you might have heard of the term smart contracts and whatnot, right? So essentially, it just means that compute component in it. So you put in an input, it computes, it comes out. So with that, two components together, you can then introduce decentralized way of doing finance without needing a centralized party to say, I'm going to control or I'm going to enforce this contract, because everything is clear, everything is transparent, available for you. So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
Sorry, treat me as a 9 years old. So if I understand correctly, right? So what you're trying to say here is that there's an automated system where it helps you to find buyer and seller or any other things, because you say that that's a piece of contract.
Yeah.
Right? So that contract can mean anything.
Yes.
All right. So when you find a seller, a buyer, or lender or borrower, then essentially is actually replacing the traditional finance way of doing business, right?
Yes, we're going to get into that, I think, quite soon. You can replace, in fact, a lot of people are doing that. That's where there's a lot of speculative nature coming in. However, there are also certain things that the crypto community or the very smart guys, much smarter than I am, not that I'm very smart anyways, right? They're trying to solve, there's some things that cannot be solved so soon, like the legal implications, the AML and KYC and whatnot. I think we'll be talking about that later.
Yep, sure. If you guys have any further questions, you guys can always write in Q&A sessions, then we can further ask on that. I hope this clarifies the difference between DeFi and also the traditional finance, all right? And the next question is to Choong, all right? Given the volatility of cryptocurrency, all right, just judging by somebody tweeting, sometimes it moves the prices of cryptocurrencies as well, all right? Is it suitable for everyone, and what is the difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think this mic is not working. Yeah, okay.
We have to share mic.
Yeah, hi. Good morning. I think first of all, we find it very disturbing when we find someone tweeting and the next day you see the crypto price either drop or it actually shoot up to the sky. There are a few points that you need to reflect upon. When you play or you participate and you invest in crypto, what are you investing in? On the abstract level, on the philosophical level, on your belief is, I'm involved in a system that is democratized, autonomous. I believe in non-censorship. I don't believe in centralization. And on the same breath, you take a look at Elon Musk and says, you should not have done that. You are triggering either a drop or you are actually encouraging people to speculate on that coin. So this just, I find it very hypocritical that when it works for you, you say, well, good, well. But when it doesn't work for you, you say, oh, you should not have done that. That is market manipulation. I feel that when you're dealing with a very, an asset that is at its infancy, this is what you have. You have volatility. You have people who do not understand the system, but because their neighbor bought it, their friends bought it, they make a lot of money out of it, And because someone as influential as Elon Musk is also buying it or suggesting that you buy it, you get involved. And we thought that, oh, this is a quick way to make money, but it's actually the fastest way to lose money, right? And we cannot, on one hand, say we want autonomy, we want something that is censorship-proof, but at the same time, we try to censor him when he doesn't say the things that we want him to say. So when you're dealing with an asset that is as young as crypto, and you compare with asset as old as gold, you'll find that you cannot draw a parallel. But one thing that is certain is this asset will mature. And the more mature it is, the more stability you will have. So that means you won't have a tweet today and you see the price fluctuating massively. So I think that's the first takeaway that we must have. If you're dealing with a very, very infant asset class, you must be prepared for the volatility. Why? Because you know that if you invest in a very young crypto asset class, you stand to gain. But at the same time, the downside is equal. So you have the same upside, you also have the same downside. If it can go up that much, it can drop that much. So that is basically just risk management. And if you were to invest in things like meme coins and things like that, you know, you can hardly find any utility in it. At most, you just show your friend, hey, I've got some Yushi, I've got some Dogecoin, I've got some Shiba, you laugh about it. Then the next thing you ask yourself, what does it do? Nothing much, right? Except to show to your friends, this is what I have. Have some laugh, and basically it works just like a meme, all right? To the second part of the question, what's the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum? They play two very separate roles. When we talk about Bitcoin, usually the analogy that you draw to Bitcoin is digital gold. So what is digital gold? Every time when there's war, you find that people rush to buy gold. Why? Because they are afraid their currency plummet. So you need gold, which is what we consider stable, okay? A stable form of asset. So when we say Bitcoin is stable, this is what we meant. It is meant to replace gold in a way that is more certain than gold. What you call that? The circulating supply is something that you know for sure. But for gold, you do not know how much gold will be mined in the future. So there's a certain amount of certainty. So it becomes a store of value, okay? And when you talk about Ethereum, you're talking about a smart contract platform, a platform that allows for automation to take place. Basically, it can replace computers, right? It depends on just how you program it. So they both serve two very different purposes. And if you were to be invested, you need to know what you're investing in. If you're investing in Bitcoin, you don't expect the price to fluctuate a lot. But you are investing in something else like Ethereum, you hope the platform grows. So depending on what you're investing and what the coin offers, the utility that the coin offers, and if you cannot find any utility, you know that you should not be invested in it. So basically, that is just how we make decisions on what to invest in. It's partly because what you believe in.
All right, thanks a lot. I think that's a very deep insight in terms of first thing, the difference between these two, and also, when we talk about volatility, how one should actually view it if you were to invest into it. Because I hear what you say. I think that's a great insight where if you participate into the upside, definitely you should expect the downside as well, as a whole. We'll go on with the question first. All right. The next question is to Kasing. Now, how do Malaysian investors view crypto? Is there any or are there any misconceptions about cryptos?
Okay, to answer the question, good morning everyone. So practically we'll be talking about the crypto native and also the stock native, the type of different investors in these markets. So let's say the crypto markets, right? So those who have been trading for a longer term tenure already, they have definitely know about what's crypto, the native. So they are much more experienced, and maybe some of them are like what Choong just mentioned just now, the volatility. When all these are coming in, the crypto will have a lot of people coming in as well, trying to trades. So when all these people are coming in, then you think about, ask yourself, for these investors, are they purely just for the gains or are they for the long term for this technology? Then we'll be talking about what are the stock investors are like in this area. I personally do talk to some of the stock investors. So what I know about their behavioral, maybe for them, they have been in this space for almost like 30 years, been stock trading. And then when they trade for almost 30 years, you ask them, do you hop over to the crypto space, for example, with this kind of 30 years experience? For them, they would feel that this high volatility, again, then they will ask themselves, it's a different kind of fundamentals for them. A lot of people, to answer the second question, the misconception, people will understand that during this period of time, is this purely just for the pump and dump, or is this any fundamental back by these assets? But actually, you do some research about it, longer term tenors, you understand that actually a lot of coins, a lot of things are building on top of it. It's technological and advancements. It's an emerging technology. So everyone's belief that there's definitely a fundamental back by it. It's actually not just the volatility in prices. So to answer the misconception, people would just think that this is another maybe thing of this, there's no fundamental back by it for the crypto and also the stocks investors.
All right, cool. Any other views from Yeong or Aaron or Choong? All good. All right, cool. We hear you. All right, next questions. And the rest can add on. All right. What is your take on the outlook of alternative investment in short term? Right. When we talk about alternative investment here, we purely focusing on DeFi, crypto, so on and so forth. All right. And also medium terms and also long term. All right. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'll deal with this question. Basically, I think how you're going to make a decision on how you should invest is primarily based on your belief. If you believe in a decentralized economy, a decentralized financial system, then you can be invested in things like that support your belief. And how you're going to invest also depends on what are your financial goals. If you think you're a long-term investor, you're a mid-term investor, or you are a short-term investor. If you're a short-term investor, you'll probably be looking at technical charts. If you're a mid-term investor, you'll probably be looking at narratives and outlooks for the industry. If you're a long-term, you always ask yourself, will this change the world? And if it will change the world, how would it change the world? So if you ask me, what would change the world? Bitcoin and Ethereum will change the world. Yeah, right? And if you are looking at narratives, that means mid-term projects that will pump, you'll probably be looking at, Facebook is going to Metaverse. Metaverse seems to be the next thing because we do not know when the next another COVID may come, and we will all have to live in the Metaverse. And if Metaverse is so important where we can make money and we can live and we can socialize, then Metaverse projects would have some utility. So those are mid-term projects that you can be invested in. And when you talk about short term, you probably just go and see, okay, this one has oversold, so I probably can make some money once it recovers. So basically, it all depends on what's your risk appetite. And you find that you're invested long term, you don't have to worry too much about the volatility. But if you are in short term, the volatility is where you make your money, and that's also where you lose your money. I think my takeaway from this, if someone comes and tell you how good they are, how much money they make, very likely they're going to make money from you, right? Because anyone who makes money doesn't need to brag about how much money they make. So if someone comes and tell you, I've been trading and I haven't made a single losses, practically being in this space, I've not seen such a person before. But I've seen a lot of people claiming to be that person. So just be mindful. Just like traditional investment, you can lose money. And in this space, you can lose fast, you can make fast. So there's a lot of caution in it. And if you do not know what to do, read up, understand it. Like they say, it's all risk management. Why don't you just look at maybe 3% to 5% of what you have, allocate it. If you believe in it a lot, put a bit more, right? So so I think everything comes down to risk appetite.
So I hear you. There's a very interesting viewpoints that you have there. So how can I relate back to the traditional world is that even though for stock investment or bond investment or any forex investment, right? Technically, there's never once I also heard that 100% winner. Warren Buffett can't even do that as well. So I like the viewpoint on that, and it depends on the risk appetite, where if you decided to go for long-term, short-term, or mid-term, and the allocations basis, let's say 5% of your portfolio, because if you imagine you have $100, a 5% of your investment is $5, and it goes up by 4 times, that is 20% return for your whole portfolio as well. Right? And that is considered a good return. A CAGR of roughly 15% to 20% per annum will make you rich, definitely in one day. Right? Maybe Yeong, you have anything to add on?
Just to quickly add on about
Yeah.
people talking about how much money. So just remember this concept called survivorship bias. Yeah. Essentially what it means was, the term came during World War II, where they had planes flying, and then they were trying to actually improve the plane so that it would survive, right? So that the pilots would come back. The pilots are more precious than the planes back then, right? So because the planes were easy to manufacture, but the pilots were not. So they realized that when the planes, they come back, a lot of the planes that come back, they have like bullet holes around the wings, right? So they're like initially like, let's reinforce the wings. Yet it doesn't improve the surviving rate. So instead, they then got a physicist or someone to came in, and then they looked at it. I was like, those that came back with bullets on the wings, right? Those are the parts that are not important. Those that come back without the bullet holes, like the body parts, probably those are where you want to reinforce. So essentially what it means is, a lot of times we don't see the people who fail. We only hear those who succeed, and we think that, it's easy. But truthfully, I'm sure people don't talk about their losses. They brag more about their wins.
Right, cool. Anything else to add on to this? I believe you guys, everyone has invested, right? All right, next questions. This is to Sheng Yeong. What are the other applications of DeFi in the financial services industry? Benefits versus traditional finance? And any factors behind its low adoption rate and enemies competition?
Great you asked a question. Actually, I want to add into what Choong mentioned also regarding liquidity. So this is a career fair, so I'm going to not talk so much about price action, but to give you a glimpse of how the future of finance might look like, and how you can stand to benefit, right? You guys are in the right position because you're taking CFA. I heard CFA is like very important, because I've never taken in my life and I'm not intelligent enough to do it. So if you can take it, right, I'm sure you will succeed. So the one thing that has been very interesting in the DeFi sector is the invention of this concept called AMM, automated market making. Now, if you've used Luno, a plug for Luno, you should use Luno for tax purposes. When you use Luno and then you turn on, I think the pro version of Luno, or even if you just buy shares, right, you will see that there is an order book mechanism where you have the buy, sell, bid, ask, and whatnot, right? So that's a traditional way of doing it. And for that to work very well, you need a lot of liquidity. The problem with cryptocurrency is when it first started out, they have this term called a bootstrap. It means they need to actually get people to actually purchase the tokens, right? So if, let's just say, I want to do interesting things with it, right? Like, create NFTs and whatnot, I need the tokens because I need to pay the fees and whatnot, right? So if you use an order book mechanism to actually do it, it's because it's very illiquid. So the buyer and the seller will have a tough time trying to meet their needs. So what I think Uniswap did, the guy who actually coded up Uniswap, they actually invented this concept called AMM, automated market making. And it's such I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of it? It's so simple. The formula is just very simple. It's X times Y. So X is token X, Y is token Y times Y equals to a constant. So whenever you make a trade, right, so just use this formula. So essentially, because when you actually trade between two currencies, or even between like shares, and if you like buy and sell shares, it's between shares and ringgit, shares and ringgit, or even in this case, it's between ringgit and Bitcoin. But if you use like Binance and whatnot, you'll see that sometimes you get ETH and Bitcoin, right? So essentially, it's just two tokens against each other. So with the ability to create, to use AMM as a way of solving the need of exchange without too much liquidity, that has been very interesting. So what I'm saying is, I foresee that in the future, there will be a lot more of such using mathematics to do financial engineering, and a lot more innovation that would come in. And the crypto wolves are a bunch of, okay, I'm stereotyping, I shouldn't say that on stage. There are a lot of people that have very interesting thoughts, and they're very creative. At the same time, when you bring it to the real world, that's where you guys come in, right? That's where CFA is very important because of the compliance and whatnot. So that's one of the future or the benefits of it? So that's one part of the question. That question was very long. What were the other parts?
Too long for questions, right? What are the benefits if, let's say, you were to compare against the traditional finance?
One last thing.
Because, okay, sorry to interrupt, because I hear what you say, but just to explain to the audience here, automated market making is basically just like Bursa, right?
Yes.
Can I say so? But it's automated.
Yes, but you don't have an entity called Bursa.
Yeah,
It's
you
just
don't
a
have
smart
the entity
contract.
called Bursa, so technically they just trade, and the bid ask was automated.
Yep.
The quotes, the amounts of volume, so on and so forth are actually considered as automated as well.
Yes, everything's
So-
automated.
What's the benefits if, let's say, I would compare it against traditional finance way, like securities, equities traded in Bursa?
Wow, what's the benefits? One of it was, again, you can the two tokens can thrive in an environment that's low liquidity, right? You don't really need a lot of buyers and sellers, so there's low liquidity. There are also a lot of things that it's a double-edged sword, kind of, right? So there's transparency, so you can actually see what's going on. But transparency is also not very good because if, say, for example, you have very predatory actors, right, who comes in and then they know that, oh, I could force a liquidation in let's just say you're taking a loan in crypto, right, and then the price is very volatile and it fluctuates, you can force a liquidation and whatnot. You collateralize loan, to be precise, right? So it's very hard to say. But the other benefits I want to get into specifically that all of us in this room, right, I assume that if you can sit in this room, probably it might not resonate with you very well, is banking the unbankable. What do I mean by that? So we're quite fortunate to live in Malaysia where we have good laws, relatively good laws, mostly almost everything, and there's good enforcement and whatnot, right? But if you go to third world countries sometimes where you have warlords and whatnot, right? And the rule of law is not very strong, right? So for the finance world to thrive, you need to be a beneficiary of good laws. In the third world countries, they don't have that. So how are you going to actually encourage trade and transaction and get people to benefit from the finance world, right? One way is to actually come out is to use cryptocurrencies, or in this case, smart contract or DeFi precisely. Because let's just say if I'm a banana trader in a third world country, right, and I want to transact with you, and then let's just say because there's some credit and whatnot, right, and I cannot trust that the police is not corrupt because police might be siding with the wholesaler and I'm buying the bananas from or whatever. What you could do is you could actually use the smart contract. The smart contract is transparent. You could read it. You could very quickly, not that everyone can do that, but at least you could know that, oh, this is a trustworthy automated smart contract in this case. So we can make an agreement there, and whenever we do an exchange, you sign it, you scan a QR code, right? That's one way of signing it, and then the transaction comes, right? So the third world countries will definitely benefit this more than us in the sense of uplifting humanity, right? And growing a country or an economy or a community. For us, we're still looking at this as sort of like a investment opportunity or speculation, but I think the future will be all in the transaction nature, right? So that's as a medium of exchange. So that's where it will be very useful.
So you're trying to say that in one day, EMM will replace Bursa?
No.
Or maybe just the
Talk to me
technology.
privately. I'll share my nuanced view. I can't predict the future.
Or probably it's just adoptions of new technology in terms of market making, so on and so forth. Huh? Yes, don't want to corner you. All right. Next questions to Aaron. Crypto mining exhausts huge amount of electricity. What do you feel about it from the ESG point of view? I think this is a very interesting question, but nowadays everyone talk about ESG. So when it comes to crypto space as well, people just talk about ESG as well, right? So what's your view there?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, crypto mining does use a lot of electricity. I think at the core of the argument is people do not see the benefit of what crypto is using the electricity for. Some of the things that have already been mentioned. Crypto can potentially allow new alternative ways of doing things, which may be more efficient, which may be more fair, especially if the rule of law is not strong and so on. So I believe that while crypto does use a lot of energy, if we put it into context, it's actually not that bad, and I would say that a lot of the hype is kind of overblown. Because if you look at it statistically, it's probably like 0.1% of global energy usage. What uses more energy than crypto? YouTube uses more energy than crypto. Washing machines use more electricity than crypto. Christmas lights probably use more electricity than crypto. But because we have accepted that these things are valuable to us, we don't question, why do you use so much energy for Christmas lights and so on, right? I want to come at that question from another angle. I spent a lot of time working in the oil fields in a previous career. So I would see a lot of, they call it flared gas, because in a lot of the oil fields around the world, it's not economical to actually take the gas and bring it back to shore, right? A lot of it is just vented into the atmosphere or just burned up like that. And that actually adds a lot of, carbon dioxide, methane to the environment. And we've seen people have actually run pilot projects where they've actually used this waste gas and they actually use it to mine cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And then this actually provides better use of our resources. So I think that no doubt, yes, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin does use a lot of electricity, but it can actually be a way to actually achieve our environmental goals and not just make it worse.
All right, cool. Yeah, Sheng, if you have anything to add on.
Yeah, I add on to that. Probably you can correct me if I'm wrong regarding some of the facts, right? So, but this fact, definitely not wrong. I'm actually the contributor to the YouTube energy consumption. So other than gas flare, and if you actually do some research, you will see that it's actually a booming industry, or in this case, the guys in Austin, Texas, they actually looking into that already. So in terms of actually taking advantage of trapped gases to actually mine Bitcoin. But also the other interesting thing about that is that, for example, if I'm not wrong, I don't know whether they've done this. I think they have done this in the States or in Texas, where there was one period of time close to last year where they had this winter and then there was power cuts and whatnot, right? So the discussion is such that the problem of energy production is that they cannot produce too much nor too little, right? If too few energy, then you have rolling blackouts or you have blackouts, right? Too much, then it doesn't make sense. So what you could essentially do is, say for example, this is hypothetical by the way, you could actually have huge Bitcoin production, or in this case, use servers, right? So that the energy consumption is very high. This would justify for power producers to then produce at a very high level, right? So whenever the energy consumption peaks because it's too hot, or the weather is too hot, or the weather is too cold, the Bitcoin miners can be incentivized to actually shut it down. Of course, this is where the legal part comes in and the regulation come in, right? So there's some kind of compensation. They can shut down their mining, and which is fine because the hash rate will adjust, Bitcoin hash rates will adjust accordingly, and then it will feed. Imagine without this kind of system, right? Whenever you need to ramp up production, right? The only way is you need to actually use diesel fuel and you need to actually use natural gas to actually ramp up. So then they need to have storage tanks and whatnot. But let's just say, for example, if you always have a huge baseload of demand in consumption using green energy or maybe batteries as a storage or as an example, and then so this is the total energy consumption. This is the normal energy consumption that we have, including industrial, and then the difference is consumed by Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin mining. So whenever the normal consumption goes up, the Bitcoin mining can adjust and then just reduce accordingly, and then there will be no rolling blackout. So that's one interesting way. Another way I was discussing with a city planner in Indonesia one of those days was, the issue is when you do plan for cities, right, you have a problem of building a power plant, because we're quite, again in Malaysia, we're quite, especially in Peninsula part, right, we have a very nice national grid, right, that is very easily able to actually cable energy to everywhere you want, right? Imagine in situations like in Indonesia, we have islands, right? How are you going to cable electricity over the ocean? So they have issues of planning. So with cryptocurrencies, or in this case, Bitcoin specifically, or proof of work, right, blockchains in this case, what they could do is they could essentially, let's just say, go to a jungle somewhere or even a desert somewhere, use solar panels, to actually produce electricity and then create it and then put a server there, or in this case, Bitcoin server there to actually start mining. And then as they build roads to it and then the population starts, they could slowly wind down the Bitcoin production and start moving it. So that's one way to actually bringing the population out of dense area into actually other more rural areas. So those are actually part of city planning as well that could be introduced. So, would you say that energy consumption is bad? I don't think so. I think for us as a civilization to further improve, right? The fact that we could sit here talking through a microphone, right? We all require energy, and I think energy consumption is not bad. It's just how are we going to increase the energy consumption, energy production in proportion to energy consumption, and then do it in a way that is beneficial for humanity.
So it's more towards like efficiencies of usage and so forth.
Yeah, smart production, smart usage
production
as well. Yeah.
Chongi, anything to add on, if you would like to? Kasing? No. We hope that there's questions from the floor. Any questions, tough questions will do. All right. They treat you like 9 years old, but you don't treat yourself as a 9 years old. Right? We will see questions and all. But I have further questions here. Any of you guys, because when we talk about DeFi, certainly there are some other products out there that people might be interested in. Just wanted to know that we hear about people selling selfies and dog pictures and become millionaire. Is there a chance for the audience here to do that as well at this juncture? Any of you guys would like to take this?
Let me try.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah.
So, you were talking about NFTs, right, Bobby?
Yeah.
Basically. I think NFTs are super fascinating because they allow a way for you to prove ownership in a completely digital way. So people like to make jokes that, oh, this is only like pictures of monkeys and so on, selfies, but I think the technology is still in its infancy, and this concept of like owning digital things online is going to grow more and more as we go along, right? As we go more into this internet world, metaverse, digital world, and so on. So I think the concept itself is very, very powerful. Where people don't really grasp it 100% yet because it kind of looks like a cartoon today, it just looks like a toy and so on. So yeah, I would think that in the future, maybe a couple of years from now, as the industry matures and so on, a lot of content creators or creative people or artists and so on will be able to reap the benefits of NFTs and so on. Already we start to see some of that happening. There are a lot of independent artists selling their artwork online as NFTs. It has not become mainstream yet, but I think that this will come better and better. And I mean, if any of you are creative people, you want to like start releasing your own production, whether it is a song, whether it is a video, or whether it is a piece of writing, and you want to do it as an NFT, I mean, I think it's a really, really, really interesting place to explore right now, because if you go down a very traditional route, like you say that, oh, I want to make it rich by writing for a newspaper. Yes, you can, but newspaper writers, that has been around for a very, really long time. So where's the huge growth going to come from that? Probably not going to come from an industry that's been around for hundreds of years. So if you want to explore something new like NFTs, now is probably the time. Yeah, but whether you get rich or not, that one is no guarantee.
That's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have more burning questions here. We'll come back to that later because technically there's a lot of questions from the floor. This is something in regards to Luno. Is it safe to invest in Uniswap and Link since it's listed in Luno?
When you talk about safe, is it when we talk about safe, anything that's listed on a regulated exchange in Malaysia? By the way, not just Luno, Tokenize also. If you see a crypto asset that's been listed on a regulated exchange in Malaysia, there's 4 of us. You know that the Securities Commission have reviewed the coin. You know that there are proper security procedures at the exchanges. You know that you are investing through a regulated place. So in that way, it is safe, right? It is safe. But safe does not mean that the price will always go up. Safe does not mean that you cannot lose money. The price can go down. No volatility can happen. But is it a reasonable way to invest? I would say yes, definitely.
So it's just like traditional finance way in terms of investing in equities. It's safe in terms of because it's in a regulated space, right? But technically, when you do investments, you are bound to lose money as well. So bear that in mind. Next questions. What value do you see blockchain technology providing to society? It seems like the most successful company operating in this space are those that financialize cryptocurrency, FTX, for example. Instead of providing hard service products, would you say that the current positive sentiments is justified given that? Anyone want to pick up?
So in regards to the benefits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, the prevailing narrative is, finance and that's it. And it's actually very natural because if you look at the adoption of cryptocurrencies, it first needs to, you're actually building a financial based layer first. However, in the future, as more and more improvement into the technology, for example, now they're actually trying to solve a lot of challenging issues regarding scaling, right? And then also they're going to introduce certain things that introduce a little bit more privacy. So when they combine these two together, there is this term that might not be very important for you to know right now, but you can just take it from what I'm saying is, they call it, for example, the ZK rollups or zero knowledge rollups as an example. It allows you to actually scale after, of course, Ethereum does its thing with the merge, which is very soon, probably in like 5 days' time and whatnot, right? And then after you can move into the scaling phase and whatnot. Then you'll see a lot of interesting application where earlier I talked about the banking the unbankable. You see a lot more for medium of transactions for commerce purposes that are not so much on the financial, speculative or investment activity layer. And then you see very interesting things that happen. So one of the things I would predict that would happen is with ZK rollup that happens and scale, right? And then the cost of transaction drops down to cents, right? Or even a fraction of a cent rather than a couple of dollars, right? That's where you can do very interesting things. For example, it could even be cheaper than you could even like send messages across the crypto space. And because with the privacy nature of it, you could encapsulate that message into encryption. Just like what we're doing right now, if you use WhatsApp, if you enable it, every message that you send, that package is actually encrypted. Similarly, you could do it across. So it's almost like sending an email, but instead of sending through the I believe it's the SMTP protocol, you're actually sending through the crypto protocol. So you could send message to each other, and it's encrypted. And in a way, I would think that is a form of NFT as well, in a sense that it is no longer just pictures, but also you can actually, because what basically NFT means is it comes from the standard, the ERC 721 standard. Essentially, it's a standard that says it makes it non-fungible, makes it very unique, right? Or makes it the only item that you can find. So when you encrypt the messages and whatnot and you send, right, that would happen. Then you can see a thriving of commerce and social media on the scaled up cryptocurrency. And after that, as people start using it, you also realize that they want to do interesting things about it that requires identification of the person. That's where slowly we'll have decentralized identification that would come in. So I think it should come in that order. But that's just my thought. So that's what I think future and then the benefits would be.
Another questions. Will DeFi ever grow back as it used to be in 2021? And what are the steps? No one has a crystal ball here. This is just own personal view. It's not an advice for investment.
Basically, if you have tried DeFi, you will know what are the benefits that DeFi can bring. Of course, just like when the market tanks, DeFi and the DeFi tokens also tank. Most important thing is the activity that is on DeFi. Did it diminish tremendously? Does it fit a value proposition that is not existing today? So if it fits a value proposition, and this value proposition is something that's extremely important, it gives you freedom, it gives you anonymity, it gives you privacy. Some people value it a lot. So you know, generally when we are young, we say, if you're not guilty, you will answer, right? But the question is, do I need to answer? Why are you putting the burden on me? So same thing. If you're not a criminal, why don't you reveal your identity? I don't have to be a criminal for me to want to reveal my identity. I appreciate my privacy. I can be a rich man, I want to behave poor. I can be a poor man, I want to behave rich. So that is the freedom that I have. And that's also a right that I have. So the same thing with decentralized finance. It is a way to protect your freedom and your access to financial products without going through the conventional means. So how many people would appreciate that? I would say many people will appreciate that. So that is where your value proposition comes in. So whether DeFi will boom, I think it will, right? Because it gives you something that the traditional finance cannot give you. But at the same time, it also creates a space where it can be manipulated in such a way that it appears extremely scammy, but the underlying basis around it, the philosophy behind it, the technology behind it is not malicious, right? Rather, it is quite bona fide. It's there to aid you, but if used wrongly or fall in the hands of people with ulterior motives or ulterior intention, or how they can game the system, that's where you lose trust in the system, right? But most of the time, it is not the game, it's the players. Okay, so I think it has a lot of room to grow because of what it can offer, what it's currently offering, and what it can potentially offer.
All right, cool. I think that's a great insight. Yeah, you may add on to it.
Yeah, so regarding DeFi as well, right? Compared to the TradFi, so definitely I believe DeFi is an emerging technology as well. It will definitely will be the future as well. But also TradFi is also basically there's entity where it's governed. So most probably it will be customizable. So I believe in the future, both sides actually can coexist as well. So definitely DeFi, you look at the banks industry, you have over like maybe 100 years already. For basically a DeFi is just an infancy stage, it's starting like maybe 10 to maybe less than 5 years for now. So you're talking about adoption for DeFi. So DeFi definitely have the technologies to also grow themselves, and there's a lot of things that they're trying to solve right now. It's basically right now in the infancy stage, but sooner or later, when both sides, the TradFi and DeFi space coexist, I think this will be a very good thing in the future for as well for a lot of people to see.
Listening from you guys' viewpoint is interesting, but I have another concept of questions coming from the floor. Talking about concept of DeFi, okay, and we are talking about concepts of cryptocurrency where it is replacing fiat money, maybe, probably in the future. Is this the case with how much DeFi has grown and how the central bank or the Feds were to control money supplies through, if let's say this is actually happening in the future, would there be a chance that, how would they control the money supply then? I think it's kind of challenging because, the old ways of doing, managing the economies is through money supply controls, right? We know that is through decentralized bank, but coming with DeFi, yeah.
I think there will always be, I like to call it like a push and pull tension between the decentralized finance way and the centralized finance way, because central banks have been running the finance system for, I don't know, right? Hundreds, thousands of years maybe. And then DeFi comes along and DeFi wants to propose this and that and so on. It's very hard to predict what will happen in the future, but ultimately I think that both sides have something to learn from each other. I don't think I'm not a maximalist. I don't believe in 1 or 0, right? I believe that humanity evolves, and as a general rule of thumb, humanity evolves towards the greater good. How can we do things better? How can we do things fairer? It may take some time, but humanity tends to go in that upward direction. So I do think that central banks will, hopefully, I cannot predict, hopefully they will be a little bit more flexible to allow some of what's happening in a decentralized way. And I think decentralized finance systems or applications that today they're like completely cowboy, I think the more legit ones, the one that really get adoption, will start to become a little bit more regulated and centralized. So again, I cannot say exactly how that will look, but I think more regulations are coming to DeFi, and central banks are also going to start being more open towards new ways of doing things.
So we are at junctions whereby we are reaching the equilibrium. Looking at, yeah.
It actually probably have an answer that might not fully answer that question, but essentially it has always been about social coordination, right? So whatever we've been doing, whatever isms that we believe in, capitalism, communism, whatever, it has always been about social coordination. The Fed doing what it does is trying to actually encourage or discourage groups of people to coordinate in a certain way so that it could benefit the rest of the people within that country that, of course, in this case, the Fed has powers on. Invariably, of course, it also affects other nations because if you have dollar-denominated loans and whatnot, so those are another separate thing. So it's all about social coordination. And the promise of cryptocurrencies or DeFi has always been that it allows an avenue for you to not only just be encapsulated, because prior to that, right, the region you're born in, whether you have a choice or not, or your nationality in that case, right? That's where you actually have to follow the rules that you're being governed by. So with cryptocurrencies and DeFi, and then its ability to actually create immutability, in this case with the blockchain and whatnot, and now you have the ability to actually slightly transcend that, and you have optionality. Would I say that one would win over the other? It probably, the answer will probably come depending on how far you look, right? Are you talking about 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, right? Towards in the future. And if you look at how we have always been socially coordinating with each other thus far, it has been very interesting. There were periods in times where, for example, there are, I don't know whether you know about the Teutonic Order, that was in the medieval era, where there's a Teutonic Knights, I think they were like going to the Middle East for some war, crusade and whatnot, right? They actually had an order where you're not, they in a way, they actually allow for the transfer of money, like the Venetian merchants as well. So those are actually stateless actors that actually does control some form of currency or money, and then they allow transfer. So I think in the future we will have that. Of course, depending on, again, where your region is, you might also then have to convert into that particular nationality's token, or in this case, that currency, right? But those are the optionalities, I think.
Okay. One more question I will take from the floor. What's the panel takes on Luna? Because we've been talking about DeFi, we've been talking about pros, and a little bit about cons, the upside and downside. So anyone takes on Luna? Yeah, Choong will be the best one.
There's a reason why they think I'm the best, because I lost the most money in Luna. I was a strong proponent. I believe in the structure and the ecosystem that Dokon has built. So what I did was I went in, I threw caution to the wind, and I invested heavily in various parts of their ecosystem, in their borrowing and lending facility, different facilities. Why? Because I thought it was too big to fail. If you reach a certain size, it's difficult to bring you down. But I was wrong, right? What happened in Luna is it went into a death spiral. A death spiral is when you cannot draw back the equilibrium. You cannot bring it up to a pari. So when you cannot bring it up to the level of equilibrium despite having reserves, then that's when it will fall. So what happened was the algorithm is made in such a way, it was supposed to maintain equilibrium, but the algorithm failed because it exceeded the parameters. And interventive steps were not taken fast enough. So that is something that is still human-based. Intervention when to deploy your reserves. If we look into Maybank's reserve is probably like 18%, which is one of the best in the market. And we look in Luna, their reserve is much more than that. They are probably like 80%, 90% collateralized. So I have got Bitcoin to back me up. Then, of course, me as someone who is looking at it is, oh, look, it can't fail. It can't fail. All you need to do is just deploy your reserve, buy up whatever that's there, and you would bring up the price. But I was wrong. They have got two mechanisms. The first mechanism is actually is just your normal, what you call that? It's just like how we buy lotteries. That's the first mechanism. Second mechanism is to deploy the reserves. But I was wrong, right? So there is still human factor. Although we say decentralized, how fast the team responds, how fast they deploy is also another risk that you got to factor in. Sometimes what happens is people look for small exploits, small risks, and they enlarge the risk, right? And people like you and me in particular, we tend to suffer. We study the whole system, we read the white paper, we look at who is behind them, we know whoever, and we thought it was safe. But there is this factor that we did not factor in when we make investment decisions. And these are the factors that we do not know. So whatever you do or whatever you believed in, always have risk management. So if you're dealing with Bitcoin, you thought that you'll be the next gold, reserve, always tell yourself there's a possibility one day governments around the world might say no Bitcoin. So that is the risk that you face. So there's a lot of this uncertainty. Sometimes the risk is high, sometimes it's low, sometimes it's unknown. So that's why risk management is extremely important. Do certain allocation, spread. I don't say just because you believe in decentralized finance, you go all in. You may believe in it, yeah, but your belief is your belief, right? It doesn't represent what will happen in the future. So there's a certain amount of speculation, there's a certain amount of ability. So if someone says, I make the right pick because I'm extremely intelligent, I'm able, that is not true. It do come with a certain amount of luck, right? So like, well, it happens, but then what you do, you dust up and you move on and you make the next investment.
I'm glad that you really share that you have lost a lot into this. So the key takeaway here for the audience is, whatever you take, whatever you invest in, you are taking risks, right? Technically, you are taking risks. So you are bound to lose money. And Choong here has shared his experience as well.
How are we doing on time? No time?
We have a short time, but maybe I'll just do this. How much you guys have made and lost in crypto space? And if you guys have one advice for the audience here, all right, be it books or anything that you guys would like to recommend to the audience that will change their life significantly, and then we will end this after this.
Wow, probably need some time to think about that. But
just a quick one out of your mind.
yeah, just out of my mind. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity as a group therapy session to also share my Luna losses.
Not too long.
Yeah, I didn't lose everything, obviously, but I also did lose everything that I invested in Luna. However, I was on a different thesis, because if you read the Luna white paper, right, or the Terra Luna white paper, you will understand that that death spiral design that Choong talked about is already there. They're very obvious with it. So how it works essentially is that you have the Luna token, whatever the price it is, right, you can then convert it into a stable coin, quote unquote, or to the dollars, right? So let's just say it's worth about, let's say it's worth about $100 right now. You can exchange $1 of it into US dollar. They call it USDT, right? So then in total your holdings, right, your holdings of $100 becomes $99, right? But then you have $1 in USDT or the stable coin. So that is fine, right? The flaw with that design is, let's just say the entire market cap of the USDT is about let's say 100 million, right? And due to maybe some weakness in the crypto market, Luna price dropped to about 50 million. So you have an issue here. Why? Because when you want to convert that $100 million back into Luna, right? You have an issue where you don't have sufficiency, right? So they can actually keep printing Luna, so then you have this debt spiral where the inflation just goes up and then it depegs, right? The US dollar, USDT just depegs. So those were the things. And the reason why I put into it was because thesis in a sense that right now a lot of the cryptocurrencies is on investing, right? It's on speculating and it's on the value. So I was positing that in the future, again, I earlier shared a lot about trade, about banking the unbankable. So I think if there is during that time, one of the cryptocurrencies that stands a chance, I thought, okay, probably Luna is something that's worth giving it a try. So that's why I put it in. But of course, they didn't have a way to actually prevent sort of like a bank run in their currencies, right? So that in their token, that's why everybody actually, that's why it actually had a death spiral. So that's one way to think about it. In terms of books, I have to think about it for a moment. But recently, The Alchemy of Finance from George Soros would be very interesting. He talks about reflexivity. It's a very hard read, but you can actually think about it. You can just read it. But the key point here is reflexivity. You can go research about it. It's a very interesting point. Yeah, and that probably Bitcoin Standard as well as a good start. Yeah.
Aaron, how much you have made and lose throughout your investment journey?
Yeah, so I'll share you probably my largest gain, speculative stuff. Again, not suggesting you do it, but for full transparency, some speculative NFTs went up 150 times in about 1 year. But I've also lost like I've also invested in a lot of things that went to zero. Like I've invested $2,000 in Luna and it's worth basically less than RM1 now. But overall, if you ask me, throughout the past couple of years, I've probably like whatever I've put into crypto, I've like made like 2.5 times that roughly lah, right? So, but I haven't sold lah. I mean, I'm a long-term believer. Again, this is not financial advice, just sharing my personal journey. In terms of recommended reading, I'm just like looking this. There's CFA Institute has a paper called "Crypto Assets: The Guide to Bitcoin, Blockchain, and Cryptocurrency for Investment Professionals." Yeah,
Thanks
or
for
you wanna
promoting
clap?
that. But sincerely, in your heart, what is one of the best book that you have read so far that you want to share with the audience?
Oh no, I was serious. I actually read this paper from end to end. Yeah. Paper book. I read it from end to end, and I thought it was
Okay.
really good because it, coming into sort of from a crypto space, I was like worried. Okay, what's the CFA Institute gonna think? Is it gonna call it a scam or what? But I found the points like really well balanced and really well thought out. So again, I think that's a great book. If you talk about like general personal finance, the best book I know about money finance is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. That is an amazing book lah. If you ever want to be good at your own personal finances, crypto or non-DeFi related, definitely go check out that book.
All right. I know Choong loves everything. So what are your recommendations?
I think Sheng talked about the Bitcoin standard. The Bitcoin standard is what a lot of industry use to understand how it works, the technology behind it. So if you want some basic reading, some understanding of it, I think that's the best. Second is if you know about this website called Masari.io. Masari.io, they do produce good, well-researched articles, and sometimes it can be a little bit technical. But if you see what one of the principal, his name is Ryan Selkis, if you see what he writes, it's very relatable. It's something that anyone can read and understand. So it's written to cater for the masses. I think that's what we need. We need to understand rather than put on big terms and then we get confused and we do not know what you're talking. You sound smart, then suddenly we feel dumb, right? So Masari will be a good starting point. There are a few very legit sources online because nowadays I think hardly you don't touch books. I don't touch books. So what I do is I read articles. I read newsletters, and I think there are some very credible sources out there.
All right, thanks. Kazing, I have to cut you short. Just tell me, make or loss.
Definitely is I'm losing right now, but of course, I think everyone should know their risk management and also going through a regulated exchange like us, like Luno and also Tokenize, because we have listing a few coins. So practically, we have more SC approved coins, which we do even do due diligence ourselves and we go through approval. So it's easier for everyone to start off with as well, to better understand what's this crypto industry with these few coins. So yeah.
All right, cool. I think it's a great session. There's a lot of sharing and thoughts in regards of this DeFi space itself, the pros, and we do talk a little bit about cons itself, and where are we heading, all right, when it comes to crypto and DeFi spaces. I appreciate your time here today. I mean, there's a great people here today on the stage where they share their thoughts and also their knowledge that they have. You guys can connect with them through LinkedIn, right? I believe, yeah. So any further questions that you guys wanted to know or understand further, I saw questions regarding job offering. So that one, you guys have to take it offline. All right. Yeah. So once again, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for the time. And 1 more minute.
Yeah, we still got time for one more question.
One more question.
Yeah, one more question.
I'll take it from the floor. Anyone? Quick one. One questions.
Anybody got a question?
Anybody? One questions. Okay, then you make a point.
Testing. Yeah. Misconceptions.
Misconceptions. Okay.
Misconceptions of DeFi. So I think in the coming future, we won't be thinking about, oh, this is DeFi and traditional finance. It will be put together such that we'll be like, oh, it has always been natural. Just like how the Zoomers, right, those born after year 2000, like, they can't imagine a life without internet. I sound like I'm older than that, but so the truth is, I think in the future it will become like that, and we see that already happening in a sense that, for example, I think probably a couple of months ago, Tesla actually wanted to build a factory. They got the sources of funding. They got a sort of like a firm, right, that actually loaned them, I think called 6S Capital, as in Anam, 6S Capital. So they got it invest, and then the source of the funding, they actually got it from MakerDAO, a DAO or a group, a community of cryptocurrency. In this case, a crypto group, right, online. So they got like 5 million of it because the MakerDAO has a treasury that they need to actually generate yield or interest, right? And then 6S Capital want to actually diversify their sources, right, or their liquidity sources so that they can then fund Tesla. So this is what we call real world assets, right? So in the future, you'll probably see a lot more stuff like this happening. And I think as regulation comes in and there's more clarity there, wouldn't be surprised that we won't call it DeFi or traditional finance. We just call it finance. And it will be part of your CFA syllabus. You better study.
It's going to be part, right? Some of the cryptos chapters are actually in the CFA syllabus really.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for your time. Alex, back to you.